There we go. I just wanted to share a little picture thing. Please like, share, and subscribe, guys. Okay. Um, I'm just testing things out. So, welcome to me. Welcome to the channel. And so, before we get into today's, I guess topic, let's go ahead and share our energy um, with the meditation singing bowl and the 3 deep cleansing breaths. All right. So, first of all, I apologize to my viewers for being a little bit tardy.
It's my fault.
Um, it's okay. I was snacking on nuts. I was hungry.
I was just late.
So, yes, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Sunny, please tell us about this new moon and Aquarius.
Well, very eccentric. Aquarius is all about astrology and the esoterics and metaphysics. So you can expect to see more information about extraterrestrials, outer space, UFOs. Um, the thing about this new moon is that there is a Capricorn stellium at the same time. So in any chart, this is where astrology has a hard time with credibility, because someone could say, I'm a Libra sun, but then they have 5 planets in Aries. So if they read about Libra, maybe I'm nothing like that. But if they read about Aries, they have 5 planets there. It's that energy. So I believe that the Capricorn stellium for the new moon probably has a lot to do with what we're going to be experiencing or have already experienced. Capricorn is the mountain goat that works very hard to get to the top of the mountain. So you may find yourself working harder than usual. An Aquarius new moon, of course, would be a great time to start new projects involving software, the internet, anything electronic, electronic highways. You may upgrade computers. So working very hard on computers would be the base interpretation of the new moon. And we can go down several rabbit holes from there, but I don't want people to overlook the strong influence of Capricorn with this new moon. So like all new moons, it's the beginning of a new cycle. And we also have the lunar year in Asian astrology or Chinese astrology of the tiger in a water element, which from what I understand, the tiger is very aggressive, but when it's in the element of water, it's not as impactful.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a video about how in the original Chinese astrology, it was the lion, and the lion would like kill all these different species in the forest, whereas the tiger showed more compassion. So they ultimately replaced the lion with the tiger because of the tiger's compassion. And Aquarius is all about humanity. And certainly when you look globally, there is a revolution in humanity. I guess I just want to make one little footnote, because I've had a very frustrating few days here. And that is, we're not all up in arms about what you should or should not do to your body. The whole bottom line principle is whether or not you should be the one to decide what happens to your body. So the truckers up in Canada, I've kind of been watching that. I'm fascinated that would be ruled under Mercury. Um,
Mhm.
and so we've had Mercury go direct here recently. We've had Venus go direct over the weekend. So we're going to be in a period now to almost the end of April of no retrograde planets. Towards the end of April, Pluto will station to go retrograde. And another little footnote here, I know there's a lot of different interpretations and opinions about retrograde energy, but every summer in the Northern Hemisphere, all our lives, the outer planets go retrograde. So it's nothing new. It's kind of how the phrase got coined, lazy days of summer. And so, but it's kind of fun to know that here for February, March, most of April, there's nothing retrograde, unless you want to look at the north nodes, but those go back and forth all the time. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of information come out with the Capricorn stellium is Pluto, Mercury, Venus, Mars. And I don't usually talk about asteroids, but because it really piles into this Capricorn stellium, that would be Vesta and Juno. So, Vesta relates to the Vestal virgins from ancient times, whose sole mission was to keep the eternal flame burning. So that was taken extremely seriously to the point where if a woman let the home hearth fire go out, she was severely punished, if not sacrificed. That brings you to this energy of isolation, where because of global political, socioeconomic issues we've been living through, you get to this isolation energy. I think it was March or April of 2021, we kind of had the same setup with Saturn and Uranus as we're revisiting now. So where some places are trying to reinstitute some of the same restrictions or whatever. Again, astrology shows us the cycles. And the thing about Year of the Tiger, I recall one of the viewers, and I don't want to botch her name, so I'm just going to leave the names of the innocent quiet, is the interest in history and cycles in history. So one of the things more currently, if you look back at what was going on with you around November, middle of November of 2021,
Mhm.
you're readdressing the same degree now. We go back to March 2021, we're readdressing some of the same issues.
Mhm.
But with Year of the Tiger, what I was researching is other years of the tiger. And this is not to say that every time it's a Year of the Tiger, these things will happen. But there are some interesting things and historic events that have happened. And we've already had one happen within the last 2 weeks with the earthquake or whatever it was off of Hawaii in Tonga.
Mhm. Mhm.
I personally don't think that was a natural event. I think that was something nefarious.
Mhm.
But anyway, so then if you go back to 2010, there was the huge earthquake in Haiti. I can't recall off the top of my head how many people died, but it was horrendous. Also, one of the oil platforms for British Petroleum exploded, caused a huge oil spill. If you look at international news right now, there's been an earthquake off of Japan that has caused a huge oil spill. Oil is ruled by Neptune, and we can talk about Neptune in a little while. It is certainly in its home of Pisces, so it's going to be more intense, whatever it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1986, we had the nuclear power plant Chernobyl explosion. So nuclear is a big subject matter right now. You've got a lot of narratives about third war or nuclear war or
Do you
nuclear.
think that the explosion in Tonga was a soft opening for
Yeah,
what's to come? Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, uh,
It's interesting. I wish mainstream media would get more honest. I think they do a lot of fear mongering and scaring people for some other rationale other than to tell the truth.
mhm,
Also in 1986, the space shuttle that blew up that we all witnessed, got just very little distance into the sky, and that was 8 astronauts, I believe, 9.
mhm,
Um, in 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, what's really interesting to me to hear that is because right now, politically, there's a similar energy um, of manipulation for something that was strictly um, just to intentionally manipulate a war. Um, I know I've seen some video about Ukraine and Russia right now, where
mhm.
people in Ukraine are saying, well, we're not worried about Russia. But over here, the media is trying to fearmonger a big war.
Exactly.
And, I just thought of this. I wasn't going to go there, but it's kind of a way for me to try to bring that point home. So I was born in the 60s. I remember the Vietnam War pretty well in terms of my parents' reactions. Okay.
Mhm, mhm,
I was a little girl running around the house. The news would be on, and it didn't make a memory on me until they responded to um, one of their dearest friends' son getting killed in a helicopter. And that son, Andy, had always been like a brother to us. I mean, I knew
mhm,
him, he was like a big brother to me. Then it hit me, right? Then it hit me. Um, and then seeing your parents upset and reacting, children tend to follow their parents' vibration or lead.
mhm, mhm,
As I am an amateur at history, but I really love history, so I won't get all the facts exactly right, but I'm trying to bring home a general point of a cycle.
mhm,
So as I became more adult and maybe heard things about Vietnam and connecting it to whatever memories I had, I came across, I think on the History Channel, a documentary about the commander of North Vietnam saying that the United States won that war, but it was the United States media propaganda that said we, the United States, lost that war. So that kind of got my mind thinking about how the media manipulates things. This has probably been 20 years ago. And now when I'm watching these, and I try not to watch, but I want to peek just to keep an idea of what are other people tuning into? What are they hearing? What are they watching? Um, Everybody I work with just sits in front of the TV and, you know, believes everything they hear, and I'm the odd man out. And but when you start hearing how they're acting about Russia, Ukraine, it is identical to how Vietnam was treated in the 60s. And the Cuban Missile Crisis kind of kicked off um, more warmongering. So it's interesting how the people of a country might not be worried about another country invading them, but some diabolical part of the news media plays games at finding it fun to scare people to death and trying to create conflict. And you can speculate on all kinds of reasons why behind that I just too overwhelming. And then in 1950 was the Korean War.
mhm,
And then 1914 was Archduke Ferdinand, heir to Austria's murder or assassination. And depending on what historic version you want to hear, but there is a general consensus that that is what began World War One. So, and that's a very interesting history lesson that we could expand on another time if you'd like. So, when we talk about cycles and the year of the tiger and where we are today, we've already had, the volcanoes going off, the tsunamis from the volcanoes, the beating of the drums in Eastern Europe, the really incredible convoy up in Canada. I did hear this afternoon that the PM up there has been tested positive for COVID and may be isolated for a while.
Oh,
And
wow.
if you're in a conspiracy therapist tin cap, which I tend to wear, that means he's been arrested.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one of these codes. And I'm going to go back to a couple of videos ago, and this is really how I feel about all of the energy going on right now. I'm really excited. I mean, I understand that people sit and watch the TV and see all this scary stuff, and they might see stocks going down and Bitcoin going down. But if you keep a bigger picture about weeding out corruption and bringing to light things that have been absolutely crimes against humanity and need to be justice needs to come. I think it's an exciting time. And if you're feeling scared or uneasy about some of the threats or information that may or may not be true, it's our opportunity to hone our faith and our tools, our spiritual tools. So I was just telling you before we went on about a sad exchange with a friend of 10 years over whether or not you've been jabbed. And again, I don't say that's not the issue. The issue is whether or not you should be free to decide what happens to you. And so I feel sometimes like people have a crisis in faith. If, you'll hear people say, well, I hear so many voices in my mind. I don't know which one's my intuition, because I'll sit here and browbeat about be discerning, use your intuition, use your common sense. And I'll get people in readings say, well, I just, I hear so many voices. This is what I've always been taught that I think is helpful, and hopefully it will help people out there. Your first voice is your intuition. Like if you quiet your mind and you're trying to make a decision about something, what you hear first is your intuition. It's when you start second guessing and negotiating and manipulating what you heard first. Because oftentimes what you hear first is kind of scary and the last thing you want to do. And this Aquarian full moon with a Capricorn stellium is going to push your boundaries. It's going to push you out of the corner and out of the safety zone of, everything that's just been nice and calm and, some false perception of security, really. So, every time you hear in your voice, and it's fun, if you can start kind of being more watchful of your words in your mind, this becomes more natural and easier and helpful. But if you will watch every time you say, I need or I want, we all do it. I need, I want. You get to know what that voice is. That is the ego. And the ego dies a little bit every time your spirit grows into its intuition. So when you're going on raw intuition, you have very little ego. And that's the battle of the spiritual journey, right? Is being your truest self, following your heart, following your intuition, as opposed to social mores and how outside groups of things and people and family and friends pressure you, or, in a lot of cases, bully us into doing things that go against our intuition. And
Mhm.
I'm sure we can all sit down quietly and go back to certain things where we wish we had made different decisions, and we would discover that we went against our first voice. So this energy that we're in is begging us to listen to our intuition. And when it makes you feel insecure or unstable, then beef up your faith. What do you believe in? It doesn't really matter if it matches anybody else. This is my opinion. I have a very eccentric collection of my beliefs and what I think about faith and our lives. Um, you know, through Tai Chi, Chi is the ongoing energy. You never really
Mhm.
die. You're going to drop a persona and keep on going. And, you can get into, we're hearing more and more about time travel, which is very Aquarian. So the other thing at play over these last 18 months or so has been a dance between Uranus and Saturn. We've gone from an opposition to a square, back to a square. Um, these are really challenging energies because Saturn makes us grow up. It makes us mature and learn our lessons. And if you've made poor judgment, or you've um, gone with something against your instincts, Saturn wants you to correct that. And it'll set the stage for you to have that lesson over and over again. The faces might be different, but it's the lesson. The repetitive lesson that I go through is standing up to bullies. It just seems like no matter what I do, I end up in a situation where someone's bullying me, because I'm spiritual, or because I'm an astrologer, or this or that. And I have to buck up and be firm in who I am, and that I can express it. And it's okay for us to be different. I think a lot of us in the spiritual community now are just here now to drive home that point. It's not
Mhm.
about control and you do as I do. It's about freedom to express how you feel and debate and discuss and respect. I respect you for whatever your decisions are, just the same as I should be respected for my decisions. And
Mhm.
Saturn, Uranus connections are all about respect on every level. You look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, you were talking about Play-Doh. Um, but I was trying to process it, but I forgot, so I was listening to you.
You mean Pluto? Pluto? Or
No, you were talking about having the discussions, uh, like having a philosophical conversation with
oh,
other
yeah.
people about viewpoints and stuff, and being
Oh,
open and free to talk.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So
there.
Plato probably has some wisdom about that I could look up.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, and Shakespeare, his work, you know, um, here's where I'm trying to formulate something that everyone can actually use for this energy. Isn't it interesting that the the dates and and points on the globe and people might be different, but that energy of control, um, manipulation are the same. And trying to find the truth and get to the truth is what Aquarius does. The key words for Aquarius is I know. So no
Mhm.
matter where you fall in all of the stuff that's happened over the last 18 months or so, close to 2 years, we're going to find out the truth now this year. I want to believe sooner than later. I've heard predictions of later in the year, but we're all tired. We're all pretty worn out emotionally and spiritually, and probably even physically. I think a great deal of isolation is about depression. Depression can work on the physical body to cause aches and pains and lethargy. And it really does take some deep down spiritual oomph, meat to buck up and stand in your truth, regardless of what it may cost you. I mean, all
Mhm.
these truckers up in Canada, the powers that be have frozen their GoFundMe account where people were donating millions of dollars, and that account has been frozen. Um, you've got Amish people stepping up to provide them food. You have tanker trucks joining the convoy to provide the fuel. So you've got, last I heard, like 3 separate convoys, all self sufficient. And it's not about whether or not you get jabbed, it's about the freedom to decide for yourself what's good for you. And
Mhm.
that's where I'm having a real hard time tempering my anger, because I just don't understand why people think they can get into another person's personal business about their body or their medical
Well, the thing
information.
is that it's psychological warfare,
It is.
and it was planned from the higher, I guess, the top tier,
Yes.
to brainwash people from the top down, and it's really survival of the fittest. How strong is your mind? You
It's
know,
true.
do you do meditation? You know, how could you use your discernment? Are you going to succumb towards anger, resentment, fear?
Right.
And knowing the difference. So like a lot. I know that when COVID had started, there was a lot of like fear mongering that was going on, having to put on a mask, getting vaccinated. And even still, there's still like propaganda, what I call propaganda, where you get pieces of, I guess, I don't know, whatever way that they can push. Oh, look at Dr. So and so down the street. He took the vaccine and it's safe. Like, really? And I get this like back to back to back to back. So, do you see? Like, they have, I guess, tests, or they've been testing this over time. And I know this because when back in my youth, I was in charge of the terrorist awareness course, which was built for the military, and so I know like what goes down when we're being infiltrated by terrorist activities. Okay, and this is one of their tactics, and it's not, it's sickening. And it is kind of like media. What I call now is the new way of, it's like a weapon of mass destruction, and so people, they just need to like get off the news, go in your garden, plant you a garden. Okay, don't rely on uh you know I guess like companies to bring you food. If you have a farm, raise your own animals. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, if you can, obviously I'm vegan, so I don't have to worry about the animal part. But uh, I could definitely plant a garden, right? And just like be natural. A lot of these things, like as far as like getting vaccinated and stuff like that, I don't know what the heck that they put in it, but everybody who has taken it are sick. And so use your discernment, guys. I mean, people have the flu all the time, you know
Well,
it sucks. We know. But now it's like people are giving the easy way out. It's like, do you take the red pill or the blue pill? Which one do you want? And
shouldn't
now,
be about that, should it?
Yeah, now I saw that the people in Switzerland are having like an injection party for a microchip to be inserted into your hand. Like seriously, guys,
Wow.
like like
That
you could like scan your hand and you could do everything with it. But you know
your
why
finances,
are people
everything.
so lazy? Why can't you like get your stuff together?
Well, I'm
It's
not so
like.
sure that we haven't been manipulated through growth hormones in our food chain. I think that
Mhm.
has a lot to do with the laziness and lethargy and people, the
Yeah, and people being
incessant,
sick,
yeah,
yeah, having,
incessant
issues,
obsession.
yeah,
Mhm.
with the heart and other, like, diabetes and,
Yeah.
you know, obviously, it's because of all the sugar, but,
Well, it's definitely degraded our quality of food.
Mhm.
Um, on that note, I don't know if you remember a couple of times ago, we spoke quite a bit about Jupiter transits and Jupiter rules international courts. So I had sent this document to you. I was just going to give people enough to be able to go out and find it for themselves. For me, it gave me a lot of good feeling that we're not alone, and where the media would make us feel like we're, the only two people alive who believe the way we do. I think that's not true. If you go out there and look up International Common Law Court of Justice, I remember mentioning Nuremberg Trials 2.0.
Mhm.
And also on YouTube is a really good biography of the prosecutor for the Nuremberg trials. These are crimes against humanity, war crime courts held by the military, which is very different than our local courts. Number one,
Mhm.
military tribunals are over in 3 or 4 days. And so this is a warrant for seizure issued by the court. Um, and let's see, I do know that out there somewhere on one of the controlled platforms it says that this is false. I have been trying to find it be false, and I keep finding the same document consistently. It's just not something that mainstream wants you to know. But I don't think I should read this. I don't want to get the channel dinged, but
Thank
basically,
you, honey.
yeah, basically, the Pope and the Crown and Gates Foundation and Pfizer um, have evidence of using Indigenous children in Canada for medical experiments. And another thing that makes it real hard for me to control my anger is you can get a lot of bullies all up in their head about what I do with my medical history, but they're okay with children being maimed, killed, and violated uh, for the sake of some psychopathic mind to experiment the threshold of pain in a person.
Right.
So that all has to come out. I mean, that all, you can't keep going for a couple hundred years, because I do believe all of this has been going on for a long time. I
Mhm.
think that we've all been sort of passive. We're so focused on paying the electric bill and rent and having food and getting the kids ready for school. And, I saw a wonderful segment of a teacher talking about the corruption of the teachers union, and how back in the 90s, different rules started applying in the union. And she was giving very specific information about how many hours a substitute teacher could spend one-on-one with a child. So if a child needed after school tutoring, too bad. And she's a teacher, and she's
Mhm.
been watching this going on in her industry, and furious about it, because again, it's big special interests that have nothing to do with common folk, you and me here on the, here in the neighborhoods trying to just live our lives. And then the other thing that I found as it wants to fall on the floor, and this was a document that was proposed that all of us in the state should send a copy to our state's attorney general. It's a proposed indictment that speaks to the big C we're talking about, and how it's been manipulated. And the bottom line is these have been crimes against humanity. There are more people in the medical field coming out with how the numbers were manipulated. You've got nurses losing their jobs because they simply can't stomach what they're seeing going on. So you can't tell people anything. You can just hope that they find in their own way their truth. Aquarius begs us to find our truth.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to believe everything in the propaganda, and that's a wonderful book, it ought to be mandatory reading for every school kid. It's just a book called Propaganda. And
Yeah.
I mean, it talks about the mind manipulation. And one of the things I go back to early on in 2020 that really, none of this smelled right to me from the beginning. And I got and still continue to be ridiculed a lot for that. But it's my intuition telling me what I feel. And it might not be the popular opinion or everybody's opinion, but I have friends that respect that opinion. And I've lost friends because they don't respect my opinion, even though I respect how they feel. So respect is a two-way street.
Right.
But, was the lady who would come on these press conferences with this big old scarf, and she got known kind of like the scarf lady. And she was standing there, and I want to say this was like March or April 2020. And she was just looking around the room, and she goes, "It's amazing how you can control large groups of people." And the expression on her face, to be like a big health department, officer and large and in charge nurse who's supposed to have all of this experience and knowledge, she almost looked gleeful to me. And it was very disturbing. And the other thing that I want to point out, in case anyone's experiencing like physical symptoms of headaches or body aches, is the connection between the 5G satellites that have been launched and our own electromagnetic energy around our bodies. I think I sent you a link. It was a really cool doctor out there. I think his last name was Cohen. And, he's in front of a room with a whiteboard. He's like, we have electric energy around our bodies. We're basically electrical energy and water. That's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And they've launched these highly technical electronics in our atmosphere, right? So why wouldn't we respond? I think, like dumbing down the food chain and taking nutrition out of the food chain does make people feel sleepy and weak. And so just like, an electronic out there buzzing around, and, we're here with our electromagnetic energy. I have been reading that 5G can create headaches. And it would depend on how sensitive you are. I mean, to some people who might hear this, I'm just a kook, I'm just out there, right? And eccentric. And I'm loving my eccentricity. That's all I can say. I mean, I think that's what human beings are supposed to do, is be creative and thoughtful, and the good side of all of this. Okay, let's shift this into what's really coming out of all this. If a lot of the crimes against humanity and horror and things we've already that have been exposed about tunnels and human trafficking and the massive drugs that have infiltrated society, um, if we don't see it, we'd never believe it. It's just too bad. It's too horrendous. But I have seen, more than just one or two professionals speak to, this is the most profound time in our history, and it will be remembered. And Aquarius is all about humanity. So if you remember in any crisis anywhere, while you're digging out of the earthquake or you're digging out of the rubble, people are real nice to each other. They're like compassionate. And that's what Aquarius is, very compassionate towards humanity. And I would just invite your viewers to join me and other spiritual people to include humanity in your prayers, because this really is about a crisis in faith and humanity, and trying to wake up spiritually for people to see that manipulation and to discern that when they see something that doesn't make sense, because keep in mind that this illness has a 99% recovery rate unless you have other extenuating circumstances in your body. They've done some studies comparing it to the Spanish flu back at the turn of the 1900s. And, that was what they learned from the healing of that. And so another thing about the energy we're in is, if we don't learn from history, it's destined to repeat itself. And
You
that's
know what? Just not to intervene.
no,
I actually did the twin flame reading prior to going live, and I pretty much said the same thing.
yay.
Yeah, I know, yay! Guys, we're in the ending of the Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde. What have you learned in the past? And have you come to a conclusion? And have you resolved those issues? Because if not, you can guarantee history will repeat itself.
Yeah,
And that's where my belief is in the retrogrades, is that if we don't resolve our issues during the time, okay, and we want to kind of like push it under the back burner,
yeah,
why don't you face it head on, come to terms with it, and make sure it doesn't happen again? Because history does repeat itself until you've learned your lesson.
yeah. And that's
So,
where the ego comes in, because the
mhm,
ego wants to keep your spiritual journey hindered,
mhm,
right? Because the more you become spiritually awakened, the less ego there is. And another part of these cycles over the last century that I feel when I look at what energy we're in now is, when we go back to the Earth's axis being in a negative polarity for the last 1,000 years, and over the last 20 years, turn of 2000, you started hearing, even in the 90s, you started hearing earth changes and a change in climate, all these things having to do with the shifting, the very, very slow shifting of the Earth's axis to a feminine polarity.
mhm,
Well, for, eccentrics like me, what that meant back in the 90s was we were going to be shifting into a society of love and peace, because a masculine energy is about warring. The other thing that is a consistent theme here as you watch the narrative unfold has to do with blood and bloodlines. And if you like history, it gets even more interesting of how the select elites who have controlled the financial system and have controlled what gets told to the small people. Bloodlines have a lot to do with that, trying to protect royal bloodlines or this whole
I
idea.
wonder if those bloodlines are even human.
Well, I'm sure not all of them are.
Yeah,
That's
because
one of the speculations about the jab, is that it does have a DNA from another species.
mhm. Not only
So
that, it's like they're dehumanizing people by, making everything so,
robotic,
technological,
right,
right? I mean, especially if you wanna think about what about Metaverse, you
right,
know?
right.
You only wanna live in a virtual reality?
This is diabolical, but it's out there and it's worthy of presenting as something to think about.
Mhm.
Is there's been a select elite of family bloodlines who've determined exactly how many people need to be alive on the earth just to work enough to grow the food, deliver the food, and do the menial tasks. And I get called a conspiracy theorist all the time, but depopulation is a real thing in communist countries. They control their population. They control where you live, where you work, how many children you can have, how much water you can drink every day. And that's
Sounds
why
communist.
I love seeing the, you know, the truckers convoy. You've got people in the streets all over the globe who are just waving flags of freedom. And that's an interesting cycle, because every war, that I just talked about here with the year of the tiger, and even going back to Middle Ages, we could circle back even further back to family bloodlines and all about fighting for land and who
Mhm,
owns what land and
mhm,
whose bloodlines should be in control. These are
mhm.
repeating cycles, and the faces and names might be different in modern day times now, but when you look at astrological alignments over the centuries, it's the same thing. Who's in control? Who controls who? Um, and that there has to be, what was that saying about refresh the patriotism with new blood? People at some point have to be pushed to stand up for, yeah, I want my freedom. I want to decide for myself how many babies I have, or where I live, or what I do, or what I eat and drink. And, you know, um, uh, I digress. So, history has interest, and we learn a lot from historic cycles. And right now we're in that cycle of, standing up for your sovereign rights. And um, this whole thing of shifting to a feminine energy, uh, a Buddhist monk told me this once, and I believe it, and you don't have to, but I think it makes sense. We can take this on a cosmic scale and say, if we are changing from a masculine polarity to a feminine polarity, you can count on those last dregs of that masculine energy will pull out all the stops to keep in control, right? The ego will play horrible games on the individual mind to keep you from awakening or feeling enlightened. And the key here that we all need to walk away from this conversation is, when you start feeling scared and you start believing what you're seeing on the Telaya vision, you have to raise your vibration. We have to keep our vibration high, in that high faith, whatever your faith is in. Like I said, just figure out what it is, and be committed, and honorable to yourself, because we go wigwag and off the rails when we let some other entity with negative motivations tell us how we should feel or what we should have faith in. We shouldn't have faith in another man or another thing. Our universe is within ourselves. We are multi-dimensional consciousnesses of energy. And that's another thing about this plot or plan of, they want to rule our consciousness. They want to take away our individuality of being creative and being controversial. It's okay to debate. What a boring world it would be if we were all the same and felt the same way. I mean, Aquarius is the revolutionary. They're the rebel. They're going to rebel against convention. And so I think it's very interesting. We have this new moon in Capricorn stellium, and we have this global rebellion against convention. We all understand that we have to evolve and find new ways to do things, but it should be new ways and better ways to do things, like cleaning up the food chain, taking growth hormones out of all this stuff. What have those growth hormones been doing to us and our kids? I tell you, I have to really bite my tongue, because there's some things I want to say that I've said to people, and they just look horrified at me. And I'm like, I know, but look at what's happening. Just pay attention to what's happening. And yes, I can say some really horrifying concepts and things, but look what's happening. I'm not saying anything fantasy. I mean, it's actually been happening methodically, slowly. And we all have to find where we find our sovereign selves. I think dumbing down the food chain and making everybody feel bad and lethargic and not have the energy to do things is just another sort of sedative of, oh, that will happen to them. That doesn't happen to me. The complacency. And we're in a time when, you've got to stand up for how you feel. And if we've moved into a more feminine polarity of the Earth's axis, that feeling is about humanitarianism. Am I saying that right? It's about loving each other for all of your faults and failures and imperfections. And, there's been themes with wars and science over the decades about, wanting a perfect human, wanting, when I started seeing that couples could pick genes for their embryo or whatever, I was like, we're in trouble. This is bad news. That's not nature. And, I was having this conversation with a dear friend of mine, because we both struggle with this, and I'm sure someone out there can relate to this. Our power is our money, right? So if you know that a business is owned by a nefarious organization, or does bad things, or breaks the law, we shouldn't put our money there. But
we do anyways.
Yeah, what if it's more convenient? Maybe it's cheaper. So one of the things that I heard recently was AT&T canceled the media contract for one of those news channels that is trying to bring out transparency. And so, there was sort of some rumble about try to get away from them. They're not supporting the best interests of our society. Well, not only did she work for a variation of that company for 30 years and draws a really nice retirement, but she's had all of her cell phones with them from the beginning of cell phones. And now everybody's got to try to transfer a cell phone to the new technology and everything. And they mailed her 2 brand new phones, $600-700 phones. They just mailed them to her and said, hey, These are for you. And, she's retired and on a fixed income and does have to consider the cost of things and watch her budget. And I had heard this about the company she was with, and it said, just try to scope out something more patriotic. I Googled patriotic cell companies just for the heck of it, see what came up. And because I have to do something with my phone here in a month or so. And yeah, it's a pain. It's inconvenient. And it might cost a little more. But doesn't your freedom cost more than paying a few dollars more or driving a little further? Or, I mean, that's what people don't want to deal with, is making the decision that is consistent with their moral values, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get chaos in relationships and in our world, where we may say one thing, but our actions contradict that motion or that energy. So then the universe sends us back a mishmash of vibrations. And we're sitting here going, wow, why is everything so chaotic? Whoa. Well, when we really get honest with ourselves, which is another thing the Aquarius new moon will beg us to do, is, if nothing else, have some quiet time over the next 2 weeks to just sit and be honest with yourself. What is it that you are doing physically in action, putting out the vibration that is not consistent with your heart and how you feel by vibration? And working to get those levels of energy on the same page, it's really hard. And yes, it might be inconvenient. In fact, I'll guarantee you to be inconvenient. You may even go with stuff you don't need any or use anymore. So I think those are the hard parts of a spiritual journey, is getting consistent with your vibration equaling your value system of things. So yeah, and sure enough, she went to that store the other day with her 2 free phones, and we all negotiate with ourselves, right? We do deals with ourselves. Well, I'll just do this and then I'll fix it. This is what I'm going to do right now, and I'll worry about it later. And sure enough, she's like, well, I got a free phone, and I'm going to get this for now, and then I'll look at it again, later on. We all do this, but it is, to me, the central point of the spiritual journey and being consistent with what we say and what we do. Because chaos is because we are saying one thing and doing another. And helping each other recognize that. I mean, she's one of my friends, and you as well, that we can talk about this and not judge each other and not, get pissed off. It's like, it helps to have somebody to bounce it all around with, because these are very new age times, new vibrations of energy, and we're all trying to figure out how to navigate. So finding those like-minded people that you can say, I'm really conflicted because I love Toll House cookies, but the Nestle company has been uncovered as doing really horrible things. Where do I get my chocolate chips?
Real world problems, right?
I mean, really, since reading about Nestle, all right, manipulation of the elite, they're all in those bloodlines.
Those chocolate morsels are poisonous.
And I have too many bags in my pantry as it is. And this is so funny because I've been cooking them up because I want them out of here. I mean, we are not perfect, but we can at least make little efforts inch along to try to get more consistent with ourselves, be consistent with our beliefs and what we feel and what we're doing and where our money's going. And
and I think that, moving forward, that everyone should be mindful when you're buying products. Like, read the label, see where it came from, because I made this mistake also. I went to Costco, like I always do, and I got cereal. Okay. But lo and behold, after I purchased these big boxes of cereal, it says these cereals contain genetically modified, whatever. And I'm like, what?
Hormones.
So, like, I'm guilty of it.
We
Do
all
I
are.
want to throw it away? No, I bought it,
Yeah.
and somebody's got to eat it. I can't, throw this away, or maybe I could go back, but I already opened up the box, so that's not a thing. But yeah,
It's
it's
this is key to the energies we're in right now is
mhm,
recognizing if you're looking at the evening news and you're going, WTF, you know, and then you're doing things in your day-to-day life that support that WTF, there might be a conflict there. There might be chaos in your life. You might be contradicting your deepest heart's feeling. And
mhm.
that's the spiritual journey. And that's why a lot of people um, may anesthetize themselves with drugs or alcohol, because it's just too hard to feel all of that. I have felt really overwhelmed by these energies. When I start looking at the historic cycles and that we're basically in another fight for, land, which being our bodies, being sovereign in ourselves and to be compared to being controlled over a few elite select bloodlines. um, I'm just mad as all get out. And then on top of that, people you think are, your coworkers or friends or family, want to make you feel like, there's something wrong with you. And that's the battle, is not letting other people outside of yourself make you feel bad about yourself just because you feel different about something. And making sure that what we do feel is based in honesty, because Aquarius wants the truth.
Mhm.
And having compassion. One of the predictions through the conspiracy theorist channel, whichever way you want to go, is that people like you and I and your viewers out there that feel the same way, scratching their head, looking around at what's going on, this is crazy, is we're here because eventually the truth is going to be revealed. It's going to be a hard truth. A lot of things that we've believed all our life have been lies and are not truth. And we're here to help show compassion and a soft spot to land on, because it's been very brutal kind of energy vibes, all this judgment and sickness and illness and fear, isolation. Um, we're not we're not brought here to earth to live in fear and isolation. We are
No, we're supposed to be free and happy and travel to countries and
creative.
explore. Like, this is heaven on earth if we can make it, but because of the elite, who wants to control everything, and and it could give us a rat's ass about humanity, because there's one person that I've come across. He's a doctor, and the thing that really bothered me, and I still remember what he said, was that he believes in human capital.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, and he's a doctor.
Yeah.
And he said, and the other thing that really got to me, and I don't know if he had intel, he says, I need something like the Spanish flu, the bird flu. And I'm like, oh. And this was years ago. And he was always in, trying to invest into cryptocurrencies when it first came out. He wanted to invest into other people's businesses. So his mindset was that of an elitist, but also thinking about it, okay, because in the hometown where I came from, we do have old money, bloodlines, okay, and I know who the regulars were and who were the newcomers to the town. So that's how the town operated, and plus it was near a military base, okay, so there's history. So
It's a lot of history, a lot of cycles.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, that really gets to me about that
Well,
guy. But
know,
the good thing about it is that that gentleman was very nice because I rented his office space because he was my landlord. And at the time, I was dating someone who was a conspiracy theorist, and he acted like there was, I don't know. I'll tell you more about that. I can't really be public about that one.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I have my fair
Yeah.
share of bad people that I've been with. That's why Scorpio Moon keeps her own damn self.
Well, I don't know if it's still out there, and I haven't come across my copy. And while we're doing books, I mentioned this last time. It's a great book for your viewers to want to maybe look into. Women
Oh,
Who
okay,
Run
yeah,
with
you
the
mentioned that.
Wolves. And this
Mhm.
is The Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype, Clarissa Pincola Estes, PhD. So this is the book that very much would help with the energies we're going through. And even if you're a man, reading it about uh, the wild woman in your life might help too, because, we tend to assume we're all women here. But I do believe there are spiritually awakened men as well. I've met them and read for them, and
There's plenty of them,
they
actually.
they want what we want, and so I do think we're heading towards an upswing. But as I was saying, those last grips of Mars warring type of energy for the last 1,000 years, it's got to all just get horrendous and come out before people will, like, oh, well, we don't want that, and shift to that more humanitarian, you're my neighbor, I'm your neighbor, it doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with or what the hell you want to do with your body. We're both human beings here on this planet, just trying to do the best we can and be the best person we can. But the other book that I'm trying to figure out where it is, I guess it's still in publication, Megatrends 2000, that I've referred to quite often, that
Mhm.
bases the next 1,000 years of society from 2000 forward on the last 1,000 years, from the year 1000 to 2000. So in there, and on one of the financial channels, I saw a hint of this today, which when I read that book back in the 90s, I was like, no way. There's no way this is going to happen. And I'm actually starting to see it happen. And one of those things is about hubs of regions in the United States, as opposed to like individual states with DC as the centralized authority, that will merge into these regional hubs with self-governing um, types of structure, just like it talked about. We'd eventually have digital money, and we've
Mhm.
already been seeing that, and that there would be no lawyers, um, that constitutional or common law is pretty straightforward and not doesn't allow for all these plea deals and bargains, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. And there was a report about, up in New York, the um, state attorney letting go somebody that had assaulted all these people, and finally a young girl got killed and by him. And the reporter is asking this state official, why'd you keep letting this guy out? I mean, what did he have to do? Those kinds of deals that don't aren't fair to the victim. We've kind of
Mhm.
had a system that props up the criminals and makes the victim feel guilty. So that's kind of, just for that to come out in a news story, kind of shows a shift. I just don't think that, I think that people have just had to work so hard to keep treading water and their chin above water to survive, that we've allowed the powers that be to take a lot of our liberties away and Aquarius New Age and spiritual awakening would be the boom, 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 wakey, wakey, and get some of this stuff out in front of people so that they can make their own decisions and
Mhm.
make their own decisions about where they want their money to go. Um, the new financial quantum system has been running parallel to the old Swift system for a year. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy. This is reality. But people don't like to change, right? It's just still dialed into, well, what about my deposit? How will I, well, when all of this changes, it's for the better. And that's my message. This is to purge out what's not been serving society and humanity so that we can get to the other side of creativity and a kinder, gentler globe. But it's like the ego will hold on and play a lot of tricks, to test you. Do you
Mhm.
really want blah, blah, blah? And that's just like these polarities I keep referring to. This last shift of polarity energies or polar energies from masculine to feminine is going to feel a lot different. But when you're going through shifts and changes that you don't understand, all you know is you're scared because you don't know what the future is going to hold. And if I have no other message to everyone out there is we're going to so much better part of our lives and our world. And just be mindful of your actions are consistent with your belief systems. And, for me, I grew up, you go to church and you support your community through church missions and, Girl Scouts and I got away from it for a long time. And I went through the deaths of my parents, and it took me back to church, like kind of seeking comfort or whatever, and only to find it was very political and, manipulation. And if you had plenty of money, you could get your little projects, pursued. If you don't
I
have any,
would like to share something about that.
yes,
So, when I lived in Atlanta with, my ex-husband, we were Catholic at the time, and, we tried to find a church to go to, and, city life is very different, especially you live in the metropolitan areas. You would see these women driving Beamers and stuff, get out of their freaking car and, try to bash somebody, like, and you would think that these, high class women, would be, any different. No, they're just as catty and rude, and if not, it's worse, right? So, the thing about it is we went to go look for a church, and I believe I brought that up because that happened all in the same trip. Um, so we sat at this church for a while until the church doors were opened, and it was this guy who had like a Confederate flag, license tag on the front of the car, right? So he comes out, he slaps on his freaking collar, no kidding, like you would see on TV and
yeah,
stuff, like a fake priest,
yeah,
like doing his gig, right? And so we go into church, and we were looking, and there's no holy water in the church. And if you're Catholic,
yeah,
okay,
sacrilege.
that's like in the front of the freaking church is the holy water. And so it was like, where's the holy water? We don't have the holy water to, go in. And it's like, oh, we don't have that. What's holy water? And that was a red
Oh,
flag. I was
you
like, what?
there's your
What
sign.
holy water? Like, are you Catholic? So we actually go in, and you know we sat on the pew, the last pew, and then at the very end, it was a very pretty church. It was on a wooded acre, like, I don't know how many acres, but it was a little country, like, drive up, and it was in the middle of the city, and so I was like, "Oh, this is a quaint little church, you know? Let's go see what this one's all about." And, it was a really small church, but anyways, at the point where, you know, you give up your tithes, right, which is 10%, the people in the church were, waving up their checks in the air, like, "Take my money! Take my money!" Like, seriously? And I was like, "There's something wrong with this." I was like, "First of all, this, priest came in acting like he had a gig to do, you know, comes in, slap him on his collar, and then he said, 'Oh, another day to collect some money.'"
Let's go collect the money.
Yeah, and these people are throwing money at him, and, you know, living in Alpharetta, you know, or in Atlanta, cost of living is actually pretty high, and for somebody to give 10%
Yeah.
up of their earnings, like, they're making a killing. And that's why it's like, I don't know, the corruption that I
Well, this
see.
has been in the news, so I'm not telling anything out of line. It's been in the news, and I've bought his books and used to get, uplifted by hearing him was Joel Osteen in Houston, Texas, in his big Lakewood church. And he's called the Smiling Preacher, and he's, like a
I
next
bet he was
generation.
smiling too.
Yeah. And when I did see the multi-million dollar mansion that he lives in, I kind of, I was like, okay, well, I don't really get that, but he's done well for himself.
I
And
bet.
then his saying that I always liked is, "Don't let anybody steal your joy." I really like that concept. But a month or so, or 2 months ago, there was a plumber working in his big fancy home, and behind a wall there was $600,000 of cash and checks made out to the church, and he had reported that the church had been broken into and money stolen. And gosh, it was just like, not him. I mean, he seems so little boy innocent guy, and his daddy was the preacher. And
So I
but
guess they can be actors too, huh?
yeah, when you start seeing, really how it progressed, doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be coming out as a truth, is the mega churches involvement with things that are corrupt, and where we've believed that they're somehow um, above, I mean, that they're somehow saintly or something. They're just human beings, and they have varying degrees of greed, and greed is a
I'm not
big
saying
thing.
that all pastors and
Me either.
preachers are corrupt, but these are just some, you know,
Right.
personal experience.
It's the thing about how you perceive something under these energies being shown as something else, and that can
Right.
be hurtful. um, I know I probably can express for everyone how disappointed we are in how a lot has been handled over the last 2 years. That's no big revelation. People, have had financial destruction and health wise destruction. Um, I have a business in the Medicare area, and I tell you, I'm so disgusted by it. It was hard for me to renew my license. I have to renew it every year. But when you start seeing the manipulation of politics connected to the certifications and tests that you have to take to keep licensed, it's really hard to do. And then, just how they take advantage of the most vulnerable in our society, which are the seniors and disabled people. It's just maddening. But no one wants to believe it. No one wants to see that. And Aquarius, I think the combination of the Aquarius new moon and the Tiger lunar year being about breakthroughs, this is the truth breaking through. And, you know, if you're out there in your daily life and you discover something that is a gut punch or really is hard to believe or really makes you sad or feel heartbroken about something in life general or politically or personally or your family, whatever level it is, you know, sit quietly, meditate, pray on um, bringing healing to you, the situation that has caused the gut punch or whatever. You know, if you've lost a job, you'll find a better job. Um, all we really have is our health. So the biggest thing is making healthy choices about what you do. Um, there was a horrible report about Diet Coke recently and what it does to your stomach. And, you know, I don't have any vices hardly anymore. I mean, I would say chocolate is my vice, but I don't smoke or drink or, you know, sleep around with wild men or anything. But boy, I love my fizzy drink or my chocolate, you know, and now they want you to switch to dark chocolate, which is not as sweet, which the whole point of chocolate is that it's sweet. And, you know, we just have to make the best choices that we can. And if you have a really lousy diet, like fast food every day, all day, every day, and you never get anything earth from the earth, you know, vegetables or organic, just try to make a little effort every day and inch along to make adjustments. And drinking a lot of water is very, very important. So these are not problems that are going to go away overnight. This is about a 3-year transit when it all started. Pluto in the United States.
2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
End of like December 2019.
Yeah.
That's when it started.
And maybe a little
Mm.
before that, just depending on how sensitive you are to energy. I mean, if you're a lot of water in your chart, you're going to be really sensitive to other people and environmental vibrations.
Mhm.
So it's almost the last day or so, last third day of April, where Pluto goes retrograde. And in the chart for the United States, Pluto is retrograde. And so this is about a rebirth and a regeneration. I think what we've been going through is a burning down or a destruction of things. And the promise of Pluto is that it always rebuilds back better. It's the phoenix rising from the ash. Um, you know, if we want to get a little more personalized with romantic relationships, same premise. You may have felt gutted or totally heartbroken over a situation that didn't work out. And, you know, healing and mending yourself back together to accept that someone made other choices or that, you know, you were with them and it didn't work out. And that's, again, the common theme here is keeping your faith or knowing what your faith is, because that's what helps you rebuild back to have learned the lessons. I had mentioned the asteroid Juno. She was the goddess of marriage and commitment. She was also the goddess of deception. So this was a brother and sister, Hera and Zeus. They were married and they were twins. And so they were twin brother and sister, and they got married. She was the goddess of all gods, or the god of all goddesses, and he was the king of all gods, right? So they, in the hierarchy of mythology, are the very top. And he was quite the playboy and never loyal to her. And she also ruled over childbirth. So, you know, that energy of, in fact, we touched on this a little while ago before we came on. Women karmically have the pattern of waiting for their men. So if you look over thousands of years, going back to cave people, women kept the home hearth fire burning and waited for the man to come home from the hunt. And as generations sophisticated and developed, they then came home from war. So in the twin flame journey, consistently, one or both parties always feels a waiting energy, like waiting for this one to do that or waiting. And I can't speak about how men feel about this, but I can speak to how women feel about it, is to keep in mind that this has been a karmic pattern in the feminine energy for ions. And spiritual growth and awakening is a product of recognizing our patterns and doing what we can to adjust them to make us happier, make our vibration higher. So if we're constantly pining and waiting for someone that's made other choices out of our control, we have to do even harder work to keep positive that, okay, well, that didn't work out because something better is in my future, or someone who recognizes my value and who wants the same thing I do is right there. And I do believe that we all manifest our twin or our soulmate, whatever term you want, but it has to be when we've accepted where we are in our life. We've accepted the heartbreaks or the destruction of relationships, or all the things that bring us to this sort of heartbreaking energy that's low, right? We have to constantly on a daily basis be meditating and making that conscious awareness of we're in times of total change, socially, physically, and vibrationally. So we have to keep raising our vibration so we don't get like, I see like a dam, when the water is going over a dam, there's all this tumultuous water that you can get caught up in, right? And that's how our emotions will get. I mean, you just think, things will never get better or you'll never feel better. But we have to make the conscious effort that, yes, we will. And we are. And every day we're doing what we need to do to show ourselves love and respect and that we have value, even if, you feel bombarded by family and coworkers and employers and neighbors and friends. They all want to judge you for one thing or another. And it can put all these dings in your self-esteem. And, I certainly have had times in my life where it just makes me doubt myself, and I was recently talking to a recruiter, and one thing I can speak to about getting older is I used to think, and I would say this shift has happened for me in the last 5 to 10 years, when I've needed a job, I used to think, oh gosh, will I get it? I really like that job. Will I get that job? And now, I'm in a precarious situation at the least, and I have to find a new job. And I've been taking leads, and I've had an interview, but now it's like I'm looking at it with a lot more discernment about is that a good fit for me? I'm an asset. I work awfully hard. Do I want this? It's no longer about do they want me?
Right.
It's,
And I think that was the lesson you learned from your current
you,
employer.
right. But I think it also can be applied to personal relationships, where you feel like, oh, would they want me, or, oh, they wouldn't want me, or whatever, till you get to the point where you know your own worth and you know your heart, and you want someone to recognize that in you. You don't want them to keep you waiting to come home from a night out with the boys.
Right.
Or, my ex-husband was a musician. I actually would believe him. I mean, just naively believe him, well, I want to go out with the boys. Oh, Well, it took me years to realize he wasn't going out with the boys. You know, he wanted something strange on the side, period.
He was gonna go and get his hookup.
And so, you know, these are truths that are very hard to recognize, especially if it's someone you love and that you've committed to and you've lived with. And, you know, I think most all of us, when we get married, we believe in it. I mean, you wouldn't be doing it if somewhere you didn't believe in it. And then for it to fall apart and not work, it's just, you know, it's a process of grieving, just like losing a family member. You know, you deny it, you get mad, you get depressed, then you get accepted, as whatever those 5 stages of grief is. And so, along with social economic issues on a global scale that we've touched on a little bit, on a personal relationship scale, this is about home and hearth, your value that you bring to a personal relationship, and making sure that what you do want is consistent with how you're acting. And that if those two are somehow you're putting out one vibration and doing another, that's going to bring chaos, because the universe gives us the vibration back that we put out. And that's a really hard concept of energy to accept
It
and
really is, because
deal with.
lately I've been wanting to, it's like, do I want a relationship? But I don't have the energy. Like, it's like, what are my priorities? I just want to sit and watch my dramas, and is that the vibration? Well, obviously I'm manifesting it because I'm
That's all you
comfortable.
want,
Yeah.
you know? Well, you know, we all have to give ourselves a break for healing too. I mean,
Mhm.
when things don't work out, that you felt an emotional investment, and you should allow yourself some time to be alone or isolate. And, you know, I would beg to say the statistics for people who've gotten divorced over the lockdowns in the last 18 months are, you know, like a huge percentage.
There
Um,
has been a lot of marriages too.
oh, well, there you go. So it goes both ways.
But from what I know, that the marriages, some, I don't know, some are having a rocky situation. It's not that great, but
Well, I did a reading for a lady, and I had picked up that someone from her past, um, you know, like almost high school past, she's, you know, a woman in her late 50s. And I was picking up like youth, you know, like teen years, like someone from that far back.
Mhm.
And I even had like a physical impression of what they may have looked like. And a lot of times I never hear back on any feedback from readings. It's like I'm open to it, but I just don't hear. And I think sometimes it just takes a while to process what's been said, and you just don't want to deal with it or something.
Some
And
people, they just don't wanna hear,
well,
it's like they appreciate the time, but,
yeah, that it did. A
thanks.
lot of times it doesn't support the narrative that they wanted, and
Right, it's like
that's
it's
okay
not
too.
feeding into, like, what they want, like the happy family, the
Bunnies
dogs.
and unicorns is always what
Yeah,
I say.
rainbows, butterfly.
I happened to run into her recently, and I did that chart, I think back around December. And my ego is always curious about, did I get that right? Or, you know, and it's
Mhm.
strictly my ego, you know, but, and we got to talking, and we have some mutual acquaintances she was catching me up on. And, and she mentioned her ex-husband. And so I was like, well, is that who I picked up on in your reading? You know, I was picking up on somebody from your past coming back. And she kind of stopped, and she's like, you know what? I barely read through all of that. I'm going to have to look at that again. So here where I'm sitting here going, well, I blew that. None of that worked because I didn't hear from her. And she doesn't want, you know, she's embarrassed to tell me I blew that or whatever. She hasn't even finished reading her reading.
Oh my god.
So, you know, but I walked away going, oh, it wasn't just me. And that's what I'm going down to, what we do to ourselves in our head, our self-talk. And, I was ready to just beat myself up about getting something wrong
So
instead of,
basically, you were already painting a narrative,
Mhm.
making assumptions,
Yeah,
but not really getting any kind of feedback or
right.
proof, but just, painting a picture of what you
Negative
thought.
self-talk,
Right.
negative, and
Mhm.
that is the
And
ego
people
too.
do it all the time,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
it's something we need to battle. And there's that fine line between thinking with value for yourself and not being perceived as arrogant, or, what I mean? It's like being humble, but healthy, having a
Mhm.
healthy self mindset, and then allowing that and not having to prove it to anyone or, um, another thing about Aquarian energy, Aquarius people are often misunderstood. It's ruled by both planets, Uranus and Saturn, but I always associate Uranus the most with it. And the atmosphere on the planet Uranus itself is hot and cold. It has
Mhm.
extremes. And people with a lot of Aquarian energy in their chart can do that. They can come
Mhm.
off very warm and humanitarian. They can be detached and cold as a fish, right?
Mhm.
And in
Mhm.
friendships with Aquarians, that can often feel like, you did something wrong. They detached from you or they turned cold on you. It's nothing to do with that. But see, we have these mindsets of, trying to overanalyze, or what is it called? Analysis paralysis, based on what somebody else did, that 9 times out of 10 has nothing at all to do with interaction with you or I, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like we're always, like you said, making the assumption of something, and it's not always for our highest good to feel that way. And these energies, I think, definitely are time to get very truthful with ourselves, and to be aware of the vibration we put out, and
Mhm.
and knowing that that's a flow there, and vibrations are changing in our atmosphere. They're being screwed with. And
Mhm.
so if you've had headaches or neck aches, shoulder aches, I really do believe it's energetic. I really believe that, as crazy as it sounds, we are shifting.
Oh, hold on one second. For not actually my name, I'm gonna send you a video link that lovely Sunny had sent to me. She's not feeling very good right now. Um, so I would like to send that recipe towards her.
Oh,
Yeah, basically it's lemons and
grapefruit.
grapefruit, and you just take the skins off of it and you boil it to make like a tea, and then you drink it. So
And you
I'll
can
share
add a
that.
little honey, because it'll be kind of bitter. So you
Mhm.
can add a little honey to that to make it a little sweeter.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, yeah. So I hope you feel better not actually my name. Okay, go ahead,
Yes,
honey.
yes. Well, I guess we're just in energies where Aquarius is about the truth, and that has to do with externally, um, truth breaking through, but also internally. Like,
Mhm.
if you're meeting the same person with a different face over and over, what's your truth? What is it that you believe that's manifesting something in your path that mostly we don't want? It's a pattern. And but I meet a lot of people that it's like they recognize the pattern, but then don't do anything to want something different. It's familiar. It's the south node. It's, instead of stretching out of our comfort zone for something, i.e., date a person that's not like anything you've ever dated before, and it's going to feel awkward, and, you'll want to shut it down. But
Mhm.
until you show the universe the vibration that you're pliable and,
Well,
and
I thought
flexible.
I was on that right track, and then I manifested a narcissist, and I'm like, I thought I was done with that. Just like,
This
did
stuff
I
is
have to get a
centuries old.
reminder?
I mean, you think about it, it's centuries old. We are not going to just change these patterns overnight. And that's why when we go back over a century of cycles with Year of the Tiger,
Mhm.
these wars, if you get down into the details of what started them, it seems to always be about who owns what land in some form. And the manipulation of them, that is a pattern. And so I think the first thing that helps all of us is to have, regular quiet time, whatever you call that, anything that makes your mind focus. You could play a sport and uh, it- um, it's your focus. I mean, you don't have to be sitting oming to meditate.
Mhm.
Anything that makes your mind focus is a meditation, and try to make something daily that gives your mind a rest from the bombardment. You know, that's the first thing, and then not being afraid to recognize maybe some harsh or hard truths within ourselves and take responsibility or accountability for what we have manifest. And these are really hard things. And the whole thing about accepting that we've not manifested what we wanted is the ego. Our ego wants to think we can win and blah blah blah. And it's not
Sometimes
about.
it's really like divine timing. It could be the
Yeah,
stars, are you in alignment? It's not time yet, because I recently, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's finally got with her twin. It's been 3 years, and she could have. After trying for 3 years, she was giving up. She was like, and then lo and behold, he shows up and they're together. And she's like, "Wow." And I said, "All you had to do is just let go, honey." But during the whole time, she was very obsessed, wanting to, do whatever, she could to help,
yeah,
with, him coming back. And I'm not saying none of that was working, because I do believe in energy. Like you had mentioned
yeah.
earlier before, we're all conduits of energy. And so energy exchange, of raising vibration, sending thoughts of love and light. If you practice the Ho'oponopono mantra, things like that. Those things work, guys. Mind to mind connection. Okay, doing with meditation, heart to heart connection, that's heart intelligence and mind intelligence. You
Mhm.
can always connect with your lover without having a physical conversation. Anybody
there's so
can.
many there's so many layers to it all.
It
There's
really
really
is, and
no
the whole,
blanket.
like, 5G technology is actually hindering us from communicating in these telepathic ways.
Yeah,
So, it's just do your meditation, guys, okay? Like, sit out in nature, embrace Mother Earth,
take
we're here,
notes.
yeah, to, really connect with, the our surroundings. And, it's not about, like, manipulation, like,
And don't worry about
man-made.
what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, just
You
focus
know,
on yourself, guys,
yeah,
okay? And don't overthink it.
yeah. Analysis paralysis.
Yeah. You're in your head too much.
There's so much more to these energies, but we'll just take little bits at a time. And, basically the Year of the Tiger is, about breakthroughs and walking your talk. And um, in job searching, I saw something interesting that said, instead of looking for the job that you want, look for the leader you want to work for. And I think
Mhm.
that's been a problem and for a lot of us with our jobs. We've just had poor leaders, or, don't have a good mentor. So, um,
Yeah, because you can land the job of your dreams but have a shitty boss.
done that, bought the
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Mhm.
But do you want me to see what the conclusion with the Astro dice might have for us as some parting thought?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Or if somebody has questions. Oh my goodness. So we have um, Saturn in Sag in the seventh house. So that's truth about marriages and relationships or partnerships. Seventh house is marriages mostly. Saturn in Sagittarius is getting down to the truth. So I
Yeah.
think that, our new moon and Year of the Tiger, if I had to speak one word to sum up the energy, it would be truth.
Yeah. You know, I just like I said, I did a reading, a channeling for the Twin Flame Collective, and in that particular channeling, I saw divine masculines getting to the truth or the bottom of the situation, and they're actually angry at the karmics, because I feel that the divine masculine got access to their personal information. This could have been like a password to gain
Oh
access
my.
to either their device or email account, whatever the thing is. I've seen it.
Oh my.
Anyhow, masculine saw they went down a path that they cannot unsee. And what they saw was deception, lies. Also, the karmic actually made it to where the masculine was supporting them financially. And for what reason? When the karmic had a side piece, or they were
Mm.
not really for the connection with the masculine, but they were for themselves. And so it's the karmic cycle, right? What comes around goes around.
It's sad but true. I mean, you don't want anyone to go through heartbreak or negative
No,
experiences, but we can't control it. I mean, that's the
no.
whole thing about
And
ego
that's
and
the cycle,
control.
and that's where I came, with the, Mercury retrograde or Venus in retrograde. It's
Yeah,
very similar. What have you learned from those, experiences during those times? Is it something you wanna repeat again for your future? Are you done with it this time around? Really, like, use your discernment, make your decisions, gain wisdom from it, and move on, right?
good
Um
advice.
yeah, I mean, it's very, to the point, and that could be the Capricorn in me, where just get it done, don't go
W-
back, just
We
go
have a very
forward.
powerful stellium this week with the new moon in Capricorn, and I hope
Uh,
that that gives people the energy to, take care of some business or things they've been procrastinating about.
I
Um,
saw legal work this week.
yeah. Well, I have always come back to this, and it's been in my meditations recently because I've got a lot of anger about the global situation. I'm angry. I'm
Mhm.
angry at things I have seen and found out, and I'm angry that people aren't more upset about the children being abducted and experimented
Well,
upon.
because it wasn't their child.
I'm angry. I never had kids, and I'm just mad as hell that we're all just complacent to horrendous things that have been going on far too long. And I'm angry about, my personal job situation, and just I have a lot of anger in me, and I've been trying to process that. And years ago, it was 2003 when I went through some grief therapy for my brother's death. And that therapist said something to me that I've used, and I think it's worth sharing, that, anger can play a very positive role in our systems because sometimes it's the anger that gets you unstuck, or to do something.
Mhm.
And so I've been trying to channel anger into, you know, I have some cleanup to do to exit my current job. And it's boring and I don't want to really do it, but just out of good consciousness, I need to, leave things as they were when I came, so to speak, caught up. So I've been trying to channel that anger and doing very monotonous kinds of administrative items, or trying to declutter a corner somewhere. But it really does take kind of a mental push. You know what I mean? Like, sitting and stewing about my anger is not healthy. And so I've been trying to do what she used to say, part of grief is anger, and I think before it's all said and done about what's been going on, we're going to all grieve some part of our lives or belief systems that we've held dear that have been an illusion. And so, anger can play a really good role. So if you're angry at someone, try to channel it to getting something you've been procrastinating about doing, and so it can be positive, but you have to make a conscious effort to funnel that negative and angry energy towards a project or something that needs to get done.
I get it. Yeah, I think that's okay. That's like, I used to have like a punching bag.
Oh yeah, I'd like to have one of
Just
those.
punch that thing down.
Yeah,
Somebody
I've
told
thought
me,
about getting one of those.
yeah, somebody told me just go out for a run, and I was like, well,
Not a
that's
runner.
nice,
Yeah,
but
a runner.
running sucks.
Yeah, it hurts my legs. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I'm not a runner,
I think
but
it's more difficult in the, when the ground is frozen. I think digging in the dirt is a good way to direct upset feelings. But when it's frozen and, you're kind of cooped up inside, we've had a lot of bad weather and I'm just so
Mhm.
tired of, cold and,
I get it. We had it for about a good 2 months here with snow. Snow sucks. I get it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make positive forward progress with stuff that's been sitting around that needs to get done. And I'm angry about that.
Well, don't get angry, get glad. Isn't
I
that a
know, I know.
commercial?
It's like you get glad once you see it done.
It's okay. I really feel like the energies this week are, I don't know if it's a transitory energy. I don't know. I just feel weird. I don't know how to
Well,
place
that's
it.
Aquarius. I mean, it's eccentric. It rules the esoterics and metaphysical. So you may see apparitions. You may see is it holograms? What's that?
Holograms.
Holograms. You may see more about UFOs. So those are all weird things that aren't in our normal daily diet. You know, and
I saw a vision of a happy family in my dream this
oh, that's
morning.
nice.
It was very comparable to the energy oracle that I have
Yeah.
with the rainbow and the family going on the beach. It was so strange. I was like, why am I having a dream about a family outing on the beach? You know?
And I'm dreaming about you and your mom and I in an airport. Which I
That was
think it was
weird.
a
I was like,
crossroads, and that's true. I mean, for me, I am at a crossroads.
you know what? That was actually in the teacup reading today.
Oh, what did that
Um
say?
Yeah, it says, okay, so well, I guess I'll share a little bit about it, but basically, divine masculine's at a crossroads in regards to a feminine energy. And I really feel like there's going to be communication that's coming through. Also, there could be a tower moment in regards to a woman. Okay, so that could be the feminine, that could be a karmic energy, but something shocking. Okay, which I feel like is, masculines found out the password to the karmics personal stuff and uncovered some data that way. And yeah, it wasn't a very good visual from what I got. But yeah, so masculines, they could have good luck and good fortune. However, because of this situation done with the karmic, they're kind of like angry like you are, right?
Oh,
So it's like they don't know what to make out of this energy. They're at a crossroads. They're in between the feminine and also the karmic. So there's still something that they can't see, but they're feeling really emotional about this. And this could be in regards to a house. Okay, so I definitely see here that there is a home situation, but they haven't. There's a blockage to a home. Okay, so also masculine's feeling very emotional about that. But what I also saw was that there is deception here. Okay, and masculines need to clean it up. Also, there's legal situation here, and I see it in the very bottom. This is in the future, okay? Also, masculines, they need to really let go of or strip away things that isn't serving them. Also, there could be information that's coming towards masculine on the internet. Also, pay attention to your dreams, which is another thing I just got just now. So yeah, this is what's happening this week for masculine energy. But yeah, the first thing was the crossroads in regards to a female. So that's in today's channeling for today.
Cool.
So
Thank you.
yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed today's topic
It's an
with
exciting
Sunny.
time.
Yay! And if you guys want to book a reading with her, you can visit lionmountainhealing.com and she can definitely take a look at your natal chart to see what is coming towards you. If you have any specific questions that you want her to kind of look into, like what is your love life looking like, career, or anything in general, contact her first to see like what is the best reading that you could get before you even book, right?
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and then she could
Happy
tell
to
you
do it.
like what information that you need, like your birth time, where you were born,
Where you
what
live
else?
now. Where you live now.
Oh, where you live now,
Yeah.
um, and
Time of
also
day is the
time of day.
is
Okay.
uh,
Yeah, and book a reading with her. And what a way to start, especially with,
year.
especially if you're Asian, right? With the year of the tiger. Um, and so it's kind of interesting because in a couple of years is the year of the dragon, which is my sign.
Oh,
And so I I believe that we had the dragon recently too. I don't know if it's skipping
we
animals.
just left the year of the ox, which is my year.
Oh, okay. So did you have like an okay year?
I think, given the circumstances, I
Okay.
did okay.
Oh, sorry,
Even
my
though I'm
son.
probably gonna leave those circumstances in the past here soon.
Right, I know that, just because it's year doesn't mean it's gonna be a spectacular year.
Right.
It
I think
really
all in
depends.
all, for compared to what a lot of people had to go through, I had a good situation, and
It could
unfortunately,
have been worse.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
timing, seasons change, people change, and you have to be willing to just evolve and keep growing. And when the universe says time to move along, just have faith that the next best thing will come and you'll be okay.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah.
Alright, guys, so thank you all for watching, and, later on this evening, or maybe within a couple of hours, I will post the twin flame reading for this week, and so, thank you all again, and I'll see you guys next
Thank
time.
you, Scorpio Moon. Enjoy your day.
You too, honey. Alright,
Bye.
bye-bye. Thank you, Shabaka. Tammy Faye Baker. That's so funny. All right, guys, I'm gonna edit my video. I actually have it here on my other screen, and so I have to edit it, and then once I'm done, then I'll upload the video for today. So thank you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.